I'm Drew Hasselback, and I'm with John Ivison, our political guru. Is this the budget?
Very kind.
Yeah. Is this the budget that's going to cause an election?
No, I think it's a budget that's going to cause a resounding yawn across the country. There's nothing in here that could be a potential tripwire for an election. And I think if Stéphane Dion was to go on this budget as an election trigger, he'd end up being very sorry. Because although there's nothing much in the budget as far as spending commitments, there is little bits of cash sprinkled here and there for mental health, for veterans, all sorts of people who might not be very happy were the government to fall over this budget.
If that's the case, is this the case of the federal government, the Tory government, outfoxing Stéphane Dion, or is it just that their cupboards were so bare they really couldn't afford to do anything that might be risky?
Well, the cupboards were bare, but I think the Conservatives are probably not too unhappy about that, in that their last two budgets have been pretty profligate. They've been spending like Liberals. They've been spending somewhere around 7% increases year on year for the last two budgets. This one is down around 3.4%, which is below the rate of nominal growth, which is what they've committed to. And I think they're going to be quite happy that they can draw the contrast between themselves and the Liberals. They are responsible and prudent, whereas Stéphane Dion is profligate and he promises multi-billion-dollar programs for childcare, for Kyoto, etc., etc. So I think this is a real differentiation for the Conservatives to paint themselves as Conservatives, and I think it probably is the first Conservative budget we've had.
Now, they in the budget documents I've read that they're talking about a $21 billion stimulus package. Now, this is cobbling together previously announced programs, tax relief and so on, and they're touting it as more aggressive than the George Bush program because they say it's a bigger portion of the economy. Now, that said, I also see that their spending as a proportion of our GDP is going down and projected to go down over time. How do you have an economic stimulus package that actually involves less stimulus?
Well, the budget today wraps in the previous fiscal update, which came down in October. So you've really got the bang for your buck from that, because a lot of those tax cuts that were announced then are just feeding through right now. But in this particular budget, there's nothing much on the new spending front. So they have the advantage of being able to say they're being prudent, while at the same time they were, let's say, less than prudent in knowing that a slowdown was coming when they committed to cutting the GST, the second point in the GST, to some pretty major income tax cuts and corporate tax cuts back in October. So they really have got the best of both worlds on that front.
They've got the best of both worlds and the advantage of just being able to phone it in this time.
Yeah, I mean, they can't be too complacent, obviously, because if you turn around and say you're prudent and responsible and you're not giving anybody anything on the spending front, there is always the risk that Dion's package then starts to look very attractive, because people like getting federal government money spent on them.
On infrastructure.
On infrastructure, well, on that, and he's got multi-billion-dollar programs on, I mentioned childcare, the Kelowna package.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you don't want to be too prudent, and I think that Jim Flaherty has struck a reasonable balance here between giving people some goodies and keeping the finances pretty tight. I would add one note of caution, though, is that the last two budgets projected spending increases in the realm of 5%. By the time the year was done, it turned into being 7%. So let's just see whether they actually do come in at 3.4%. There's every prospect that there may be a percentage point or two added to that, in which case they're not quite as responsible and prudent as they making out they are.
So we'll just have to wait and find out when the fiscal year is closed.
Yeah, probably after the next election. So
there we go. Thanks very much, John.
Okay.